5 seasons in a row in the Premier League, 2 top half finishes, Europa League football and plenty of laughs as well along the way. Burnley manager Charlie Austin's old boss and Mick Hucknall look alike. It's Sean Dyche who's joining us now. Morning, Sean.
Good morning, Sean.
Morning. Morning.
Thank you so much for joining us. I know it's quite early in the morning. You had a busy night last night as well. But how are you doing, first of all?
Yeah, pretty good generally. A lot of games, a lot of challenges with injuries, a lot of trying to get results. So a mixed bag, but life as a Premier League manager, it seems.
Sean, I was going to say to you, mate, you talk about a mixed bag. I've been saying for weeks and weeks now, I mean, obviously I'm sitting in a neutral position, how much I am loving the league at this moment in time, because there's no certainties. Sheffield United went to Old Trafford, yourselves having a brilliant result at Liverpool. Do you see any difference in the league this year?
We're trying to work out the big difference, but it seems to me, the most obvious, we look at it slightly different. We've had a horrendous injury run for a long time now, and the only thing that we can really fathom out is the games, the amount, the scheduling. No one's fault, of course. Look, we all get that, with COVID, there's a bigger picture to what's going on, quite obviously. But we think that the game scheduling has been difficult. I mean, we played, I think it was our 10th or 11th game in 30 days last night. We've got another 3 next week coming. And it's not just that, but the times, the days, the times, 5:30s, Mondays, Thursdays, all kinds of different times, all kinds of different days. We think that's got to be part of the challenge for us personally with injuries. And then if you're going on to the league, I think that amongst varying competitions and trying to fit games in and play games and, varying injuries, I think it's the highest run of injuries across the board this year. I think it's roughly running at about 4 players per team, I think it is. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a lot of things going on at the moment in football. And I agree, it is, in a strange kind of way, it's ended up with a refreshing look at, all these different clubs challenging and no one running away with it so far, although Man City look like they're just beginning to push forwards. So, I mean, it is intriguing at the moment for many different reasons.
Yeah, Gaffers, Chaz.
Hello, Chaz. What's happening, kid?
Now, how are you, all right?
Good, mate. Good. 2 legendary scorers, but I've got to be honest, Super Ali's miles in front of you, kid.
Miles in front. Just a quick one. Obviously, you said you made 7 changes yesterday and rotation and all that. But the most important thing for yourself and the team, as I know, and your coaching staff, you'll have is for staying in the league. No, and the new owners coming in, you'd say to them, look, I'm going to back myself like you have done all the time, and your players that were going to go on and stay in the Premier League.
Yeah, it's very difficult. I mean, look, Chaz, you worked with us for a while. I tend to, it's ironic, really. I get questioned for never changing the team, then changing it, and you get questioned for changing it. That's just life. That's the way it goes when you're in management. But the key to what we've done at Burnley remains the Premier League, and it's nothing to do, I speak openly about it, it's nothing to do with the Cup. I had an amazing time in the Cup in my career on a couple of different occasions, and there has to be a reality to it. We ran out of players. I mean, last night we're missing Pope and Cork, who hopefully will be all right, but they had to miss that game. Wood's still out, Brown is still out, Brady's still out, Taylor's still out. We've got a couple of young lads coming in. We've got Johan, who we're still trying to be careful with, and we've got loads of games coming. It's just really tough because the priority remains the Premier League. We put a team out last night we still believe could win. Second half, we did enough to stay in the game, or we missed a great chance, which would have changed that. But fair play to Bournemouth, they went on and won it. And, these are the challenges of managing and trying to find the way through it and trying to win games, but equally trying for the main goal, which is to continue our journey in the Premier League. It's just simplistic, really. When you cut it down, it's as simple as that. The club want to be in the Premier League, and that has always been a goal of the clubs, to be in it and stay in it.
Sean, you mentioned the injuries that you've been trying to juggle at the moment. You also had a moment last night with Eric Peters where it seemed that he'd been overlooked, that he was suspended. Is that kind of like an insight into how difficult this season has been, that you're almost losing, it's difficult to keep up with what's happening sometimes?
Yeah, I mean, that was an admin error from our side. We have people who make sure they're covering the players and what situations they're in. Unfortunately, changing the rules this year was overlooked with the booking side of things. Not ideal, but it happens. There's a lot going on in football and people are trying to do their best and work through it the best they can. Obviously, people forget the running of the club with the offices is still on sort of more or less shut down. People can't work freely. It's just a mistake. It's not one that I enjoyed, obviously, but at the same time, it gave a good lad in Gleno a chance Andy Glennon to come in and play football for us. So, in that script, he'll remember that, which is good for him, his first start. But tough on us because it's another player that we were missing last night.
Sean, I want to ask you, mate, if I can. We speak and we all are aware and we know the importance of the top flight, playing in the top flight, and people will ask you questions about effectively playing weekend sides in the cup. Not you personally, I'm talking about all managers playing weekend sides in the cup because understandably the importance of staying in the league. But a question I want to ask you, mate, when you had a brilliant season, qualify for Europe. Now, I'm thinking to myself, that is fantastic. It's absolutely wonderful for Burnley. But that in itself must have brought as big problem as big problems in terms of your team selections for the weekend, for staying in the league. So in many ways, the qualification for Europe is fantastic, but it doesn't have to bring you a headache.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, the challenge of ours has always been slightly different. You know, you qualify Europe, and that's something we should have been investing heavily in the side. But the club was run by people who want to safeguard it, and that's fine, and make sure it was in good shape. But it's been in overly good shape for years. So now it's changed hands. We'll wait and see how that changes. You know, it's too early yet. They've had a tough time trying to, get links with the club. I mean, obviously everything's been done by Zoom. It's not perfect, but it's what it is. So going back to your point, when you go into Europe, it's very, very tricky. You know, if you've run out of players, the game scheduling is very difficult because you add in the travelling, of course. You know, we were off to Istanbul and Greece and all sorts, and then flying back and literally having one training session, getting on a plane, flying down to London for games and the South Coast. So it is tricky. I mean, it's an amazing badge of honour, especially for a club like Burnley. And it was the first time in 50 odd years we played in Europe, but it is very tough. And this is slightly different, this period, with all these games, because at least you're in the country, you're travelling through the country. It's not, time zones and long flights and stuff like that. But it still has been tricky, and the main thing for us has been this loss of players due to injury. I've never witnessed it since I've been at the club. Mm-hmm. We've got many stats and analysis and facts because I've been there so long. So that's been a real head scratcher for us, and really tough to take in our personal view of what's going on with ourselves in the Premier League at the moment.
Sean, I've got to ask, because sat next to me in the studio is Charlie Austin, that you've managed, and we spoke about that, and I'm just trying to figure out how to work with him at the moment. What was he like to manage?
It's a tricky one, that.
It is, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
As a manager, how do you look after a player like Charlie Austin? What were the difficult points?
No, he was great with us. He really refocused. He had a move that didn't go through, and he really refocused. I think that was the biggest challenge, but he was excellent, come out of that, got on with it, played, and then did get a move after that, a move he deserved, and has done great since. But he was terrific for us. There's no two ways about it. Enjoyed having him around. He was good around the group. He once decided to play a diagonal against Nottingham Forest in the last 30 seconds. They went down the other end, got a penalty, and took a 1-1, which I wasn't best pleased with that moment. But other than that, he was terrific for us, and has had a great career, and still going, of course. I'm still going.
Thank you, and I honestly thought you forgot about that, and I still remember trying to play that diag. Why I didn't think about just banging it down the other end, I don't know. But no, Gaffer, going on it, you've been at the club for many years. As your principles, obviously, I know they're not going to change, are they? Like I said before, come on, you come on. One thing I took away, you said to me, was obviously don't change when you go on to a new club. Stick to your principles, and obviously I've done that. I know you would have done that also with many players coming in and out of Burnley. But one that I kept going to was body on fire, head in the fridge.
Yeah, there's a few one-liners, as you know. I've used down the years, not all mine. I've nicked a few, but there's a few that are mine. And no, look, principle-wise, it's the underbelly of what we do will always remain. We've obviously flexed more than people think. It's always the 4-4-2. It fits with my image of what they think, and physical and all that. That's fine. I've got no problem with that. We do a lot more analysis on the team, a lot more flexibility with the side, different players coming in, and varying players we've had in and out the building for over the last 8 years. But the underbelly of what we do, the pride, the passion, the belief, the work ethic, the teamship, that'll all stay. They're giving us the key core values, as I call them. They won't change. They won't change in me about, what I try and deliver to the players, and they shouldn't change in the players. And it sounds easy, that, but the players deserve a lot of credit, because as they've matured into themselves, and, not just in their performances, being in the Premier League, the kudos it brings, and the finance, the personal finance, of course, but they've remained with that edge that it takes to play in the Premier League. And I marvel at that, because that can soften over years, and the players here have stayed hungry. There's a desire about them. And when we have hit tough times, that's often pulled us through. It's not just the ability to play, it's the group ability and mentality to not panic, to stay true to what you believe in and deliver it. And I think that's pulled us out of many a scrape over our time. And equally at the other end of it, when we've had some big achievements, last year we finished 10th after lockdown and we finished 7th a couple of years before, then that served us well in the sense that real bond to keep going and keep fighting for every inch of every performance. So I've been pleased with that, and I still am. And I take great pride in what the players deliver with that side of things, not just their technical performances and delivery to win games.
Sean, you certainly look as though you've got a great set of lads. That was the question I was going to ask you, mate. See like your boys, you leave Tarkowski and me out, whoever it may be, Barnes, Westwood. See nowadays, is there a general acceptance from the players? Because you know what it's like. Years ago, players would have thrown the toys at the pram. They want to play in every game. They want to do this. Is there a better acceptance from players generally, but certainly your own players?
Well, to be honest, it's been well pointed out many years. I don't really rotate. I don't really look at that. But even I've had to look at the game schedule this year because it's been, so sort of mixed and all over the place, and as suggested earlier. But within that, I think the modern player, I think they're aware. I think sometimes they need to come out, which I am aware of that, of course. But I'm equally aware if you keep telling them they need to come out, they start believing they need to come out. So, I just say, no, you're ready, you'll be playing. And we've tended to keep with that rule. But there are times when you have to make these decisions. And, I've had to last night. Didn't work out for us in the end. But the modern player is a bit more open-minded to that. There's still a thirst to play, I must say, but I know what you mean. There is more of an acceptance that you probably will come out the side. I think the other one is, I'm very honest with the players. If they're coming out the side and they're not going back in, I'll tell them, because I've not been one who's said, oh, look, I'm giving people a rest and you a rest, and then the old favourite where you don't get back in for 6 games. I don't do that. If I'm resting them, they'll know and they go back in. If I'm not resting, I'll tell them that this is not a rest. This is the reason why you're coming out the side. I've always believed in honesty and what I do.
Yeah, boss, I think that is true. I think, speaking of me personally, I think that's how I'd want to be treated. I think a lot of footballers want to be told that straight. I think so. I think you'd want to be told, listen, I'm not coming. You're coming out of the team, and like you say, I'm giving you the reason why you're coming out of the team. At least you've got something to go away and work on, to try and work on throughout the weeks in training to get back into your thoughts. You're not coming away delusion like, oh, I might get back in the team. Oh, it's all right, I'm just being rested for this game. You're actually coming away and you know what you've got to go and work on.
Yeah, I think so. I think, players want a lot of feedback nowadays, but they want honest feedback, and I try and deliver that. I've never... the hardest ones that you do are when sometimes it's a gut feel, and I've had to leave a player out and tell him it's a gut feel about what I think is correct for the team, and that's really difficult because there's not really a meaning behind it. But that's my job, is to use that feel and them senses and feedback from the staff to know when the time's right. Other times it's really simple, and a lot of players deep down, they know it. The one we all laugh at, and I used to do it, we've all done it in our time, is when in the manager's office, they're like, yeah, okay, yeah. And then you're walking down the corridors and you're hearing what they allegedly told me. Yeah, of course you said that, yeah. And I let him get away, but I go, yeah, he really said that. Yeah, of course he said that.
Sure.
You just swallow it, you know what I mean? Swallow another grenade, let it blow up inside yourself, and then you carry on. You think, I'll give him his moment, because there's a bit of embarrassment sometimes in getting left out. Sometimes there's not. Sometimes players know it and they need it. They need to come out. I've never embarrassed players. I don't believe in that. I don't call them names, as you know, Chaz, apart from when you did that diag against Forest. That might have been 1 or 2 leaks out that day. Generally, I don't do that. I just try and work on the idea of giving them the honest opinion of what I think, where they're at, and also why they're coming out the team. But equally, when they've got in the team, I'll pull them and just say, listen, different class, what you're doing, this is why, this is what you're delivering. So there's a balance to that as well.
Sean, on the topic of players saying things to managers, can you clear something up for us? Because there is a storm circulating that basically John McGinn said something about your coat, slated your coat. Is that true?
There was a couple of things said between us, but what goes on the pitch stays on the pitch. It was nothing untoward. It was friendly fire. I worked with his brother down at Watford. Stevie is a really good player, very unfortunate with injuries, but a really good player. I was remarking on that, and he'd made a couple of remarks. But honestly, that used to be standard. Do you know what? It makes a story now. It's bizarre. It's just a standard thing. It was nothing untoward. It was just a bit of light-hearted fun in a moment that's not so fun in a moment that's serious. But I've got no problem with that. Trust me, no issue with that. It'd be actually quite pleasant if there's a bit more of that. Nowadays it'd be nothing like that. It'd be like, can you get a shirt signed for me? that's about as passionate as it gets sometimes. So I'll take the odd little bit of fun. That's not a problem.
Incidentally, it's a brilliant coat.
And by the way, if he allegedly said that, because I'm not going to say he did or didn't, it's a very nice coat. I will have him know, and I haven't had it for 6 years. My 8 years in the Premier League, I've had it for about 2.
Well, I tell you what you've done, mate.
Oh, we've lost Ellie. There he is. He's back.
I'm going to be searching YouTube for Charlie's Diag against Forest. That's all I'm going to do in the morning.
I think everyone's going to be doing that.
No, the reason why, just to clear that up, the reason why it was important is that season we were slipping down the league. It was my first season. I was getting pelters off the fans, getting booed off. It's Forest at home. We're 1-0. We'd won the game. There's literally about 10 seconds left. All he's got to do is dribble it. It comes out the back stick from a corner. He's dribbling up the pitch. And he turns inside and it's a diag. It goes out of play right in front of the dugouts. Why won't I slaughtered him as well because he sort of weirdly didn't boot the ball into the stand. Anyway, they throw it in, boot it down the pitch, and it hits their their centre forward. And Kevin Long makes a challenge. He goes down and he gives the penalty. He literally puts the penalty in. The ref blows the whistle for the end of the game. I could not catch my breath, and we were now looking over our shoulder, thinking we could be in trouble there.
Never have I dribbled with the ball or tried to play a stupid diag ever again.
It's great to hear you're over it, mate, anyway.
Yeah. Well, you can tell I've let it go.
Sean, we know you're a busy man, so we'll let you go. Thanks for coming on this morning.
Thanks for your time, mate.
Cheers, Gaffer.